Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 972B, and today's date is May 16th, 2016, and the title of the episode is U.S. and Coalition Forces Preparing a Large-Scale Military Operation in Northern Syria. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, in past reports, we talked about permitted speech and freedom of speech. Now, freedom of speech, you're allowed to say whatever you want. Now, yes, you're going to offend people. And other people, when you're speaking, you're not going to offend. But we can see the establishment, the elite, the government, the central bank, they're trying to convince the population, and they like to use different terms like political correctness, to say, okay, these are the words you can say, these are the words you can't say. People will go along with it saying, okay, you know what, that is a bad thing to say. We shouldn't say that word, because it's not nice to say to other people. Like the word retard. People don't like that word. People like to use, challenged people or any other type of word besides retarded. Now, for some people it's going to offend, other people it's not going to offend. But we have to remember one thing. Freedom of speech is not about offending people. Freedom of speech means you're free to say whatever you want. If the person doesn't like what you're saying, they don't have to listen. If you offend someone, guess what? They don't have to listen. But it always starts out where everyone says, oh yes, I agree with that. We shouldn't say these words. They're not nice. And this is how they indoctrinate everyone. And everyone goes along with it. Yes, this is what we should be doing. Then they take it to the next level. And here we are at the next level. The Obama administration, they're deciding now that we should not call convicted criminals convicted criminals. We're going to refer to them as justice-involved individuals. Now everyone's going to go, well, wait a minute. That's ridiculous. They're convicted criminals. Well, you don't want to hurt their feelings. So rapists, burglars, armed robbers, drug dealers, they're having a problem with justice. And they're justice-involved individuals. You can see where we're headed with this. When the Founding Fathers came up with the First Amendment, it's the freedom to express yourself in any way you want, with any words you want. If people don't want to listen, guess what? They don't have to listen. This reminds me of the movie The Giver, when they say precision of language, when they started to change terms so people didn't understand what the terms meant anymore. Like, oh, we're going to put this person to sleep, which really means we're going to kill them. Love was not used. And people say to themselves, well, that will never happen. That's impossible. We know what these words are. But over time, as they teach the children through Common Core, over time, when people stop using convicted criminals, they stop using the word love, they stop using the word freedom, guess what? They forget what those words are. They say, ooh, don't say that. It's not nice. It's not good to say. Instead, say justice-involved individuals. We are on our way for them giving us permission on what words to use and what words not to use. Now, we know the U.S., they love spying on the American people. They just can't get enough of us. And what we found out is that throughout the U.S., many of the agencies, they've been spying on the people. And we can see in 2013, the Seattle police were forced to deactivate a hidden Wi-Fi mesh network system that was funded by the Homeland Security. In Phoenix, Arizona, there was a strange box that appeared on a utility pole, and that was from the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, where they were spying on people. In the Bay Area of San Francisco, nearly home to about 1 million residents, well, guess what? They were secretly recording public conversations perhaps going all the way back to 2010. They put microphones under rocks, they put them in trees, they plant microphones in equipment, and they did all of this without a warrant. They said it was part of an investigation into alleged fraudulent activity committed by a group of real estate investors. So what gives them the right to spy on everyone else? It doesn't. And here we are today where they're doing whatever they want. They're recording everyone's private conversation. And these people violated the Fourth Amendment once again on all of these people. But it seems like no one has a problem with it anymore. We're all getting used to it. Oh, they were looking for this certain criminal. And again, they move forward with it. Pretty soon the microphones stay. No one objects to it. Cameras stay. They continually film. They keep doing this, not just in public areas, but private areas. They move into all different areas, and nobody ever has a problem. They do this very slowly, very methodically. We see Homeland Security, TSA. Well, we can see they have an agenda running right now. We know across the country there were these lengthy security lines. People were missing their flights. People were being brought into rooms. They were being pat down, and lines were out the door. People were getting very upset. And their whole agenda for this is they wanted people to sign up to the pre-check program. So they figured, listen, let's make the lines very long so we can force people into this program. Because in the past 3 years, TSA, they implemented this pre-check program. They wanted people to come in and sign up. They wanted to be get all your information. This way they can track you. And it was a complete failure. Not enough Americans were willing to make themselves known to the federal government. And of course, the way to fix this is to create a problem. And that's exactly what they did. They created this problem of long lines. And they kept pushing the idea of, hey, why don't you get a pre-check? Because you can bypass all this. You don't have to take out your computer. You don't have to take off your jacket, your shoes. You can walk right through. It's perfect. So to do this, it cost about $50 to $100 for 5 years. The applications can be completed online. And then the government has to approve the application. They have to do an in-person interview. And they take your information and they put it into all their databases, which is shared everywhere else. And now you're known to the government. This is what they really wanted from the beginning. This has nothing to do with terrorism. This is nothing about stopping terrorists. Because as we can see, since this was all implemented, where we had all this screening, they never found a thing. And they never will. Because 99.999% of the terrorists that the government is making us believe in is created by our own government. It's created by other governments to make you do things you normally wouldn't do. And this is why they haven't caught anyone. And actually, if you remember and you think about it, all the places where there were problems at airports, it always led back to one Israeli security company that these people bypassed and got into certain areas. They were allowed onto the planes. It's always pre-planned. It's always done for government agencies. They're created to strike fear in the people. That's what they do. They created the Islamic State. We have proof of this. We know they support Al-Qaeda. They fund them. Aren't these the terrorists that they're talking about? Well, how can they be? If they're funding them, they're supporting them. They're government proxy armies, and they use them for all different types of issues, of events. Now, out in Venezuela, we see the situation is getting a lot worse. People are looking for food. People are running over each other, grabbing whatever they possibly can. And we can see right now that the country is falling apart. The police are coming down hard on the people. And we can see right now all of this is being done to create all this chaos, to remove the elected leader of the government. What we're witnessing right now is the coup from the U.S. Right now, we're watching it play out. And they want chaos. They want the entire situation to get out of control, because this will help move the agenda of the United States government central bankers to remove Maduro, just like they've done with Rosov. And we can see right now they're going to keep pushing this until it is done. And when we look back in time, the number of countries where it is documented now that the United States replaced the elected governments with regime change is unbelievable. And we can go back in time. We know it was Ukraine. We know it was Syria. We know Somalia, Haiti, Iraq, Venezuela, Afghanistan, Ecuador, Yugoslavia, Somalia, Albania, Bulgaria, Panama, Nicaragua, Fiji, Chad, Grenada, Jamaica, back in 1976-80. And it goes on and on and on. So the U.S. has a certain agenda to continually replace elected governments with puppet governments. Where do you see democracy? Where do you see freedom from all of this? You don't. Now, in past reports, we talked about Nigeria, and we know that Boko Haram, we had this whole campaign of Boko Haram kidnapping all these schoolgirls, and they kidnapped schoolboys, then they occupied a college. They were trying everything they possibly could, because the United States government central bankers, they wanted to get into Nigeria, but the president would not allow this until that president stepped down and a new president was elected. That worked very well with the U.S. government. And then all of a sudden, we had the U.S. government bring in troops to Nigeria to help with the fight against Boko Haram. Well, now we have France and Nigeria. They are going to sign a military cooperation deal in the next few months. And what they're going to do is this will open the way for defense cooperation to deal with terrorism. And the French soldiers will share their expertise with satellite images. They'll give them weapons, training, and we can see at this point what is happening at this time. We know that Nigeria is cozying up to China. A lot of the African countries are. They're bringing in a lot of infrastructure money to help with highways, schools, electrical infrastructure. And we see right now that the U.S. and the private Western Central Bank countries need to stop this, or be in those countries to head it off. And they always use terrorism to do this. They always say, oh, you know what? We need soldiers in this area, because eventually what's going to happen is they're garrison all these different countries all throughout Africa, the Middle East, throughout Europe. And we see that they need to do this because eventually when World War III breaks out, the troops will already be in place, ready to go. They'll already have equipment in place, ready to go. Now, out in Kiev, we see the Ukrainian government. They are going to resume political talks with the Lugansk and Donetsk areas as soon as they can get the Organization for Security and Cooperation police mission deployed there. Now, the southeastern people in the Lugansk and Donetsk area, they have to approve this. And they're saying that, listen, we can renew the political process. So that just tells us that Kiev stopped the political process as soon as we can get the police forces in this, armed police forces, into this area. Plus, before we start the political process, we want control of the Ukrainian-Russian border. So we can see at this point, Poroshenko is making his move right now. He's putting pressure on the southeastern people. We'll have to see if Putin agrees with this, because he's heading up the Minsk II ceasefire agreement. And of course, this was not part of the agreement whatsoever, but we're going to have to watch and see how this plays out. Because I believe if this doesn't go its way, the way that Poroshenko wants, we're going to have a major, major problem. Now, we see that Turkey and Ukraine, they've signed a cooperation plan for the Black Sea region. And the armed forces are going to work together in this area. And we know why this is, because Russia is in the Black Sea. The U.S. really doesn't have land in this area where they can keep their ships in this area. So they're depending on Turkey and Ukraine at this point to help out in this area, because they're pre-positioning everything for what is coming. We see a U.S. surveillance plane flew very close to the Russian border, but very interestingly this time, they had their transponder on. Now remember, Russia said to them, listen, if you had your transponder on, it wouldn't be a problem. But it was off, and we had to send jets up there to find out what was going on. This time they had it on. This time it seemed like everything was fine. Very interesting. We know that the missile shield was set up in Romania, and to add a little bit of provocation to the entire situation in Romania, the U.S. decided, hey, you know what we should do? We should have war games in this area. And they're holding military drills to promote regional stability in the Eastern European area. 350 troops from 6 countries took part in the military exercise called Platinum Eagle 16.1. The countries like Bulgaria, Moldova, Romania, Serbia, UK, and US all took part. But they're not there to provoke anyone. England is going to be sending more troops into Libya. First, they said they were going to send in 1,000. They're adding 50 more troops onto that. And I see already that they're going to continually add more and more as time goes on. The unity government in Libya, they're having a huge problem right now. We see the parliament is still not set up to vote for the unity government. We know the US, the UK, Italy, the rest of the coalition forces, they want that unity government in there. The United States right now, they're saying, listen, we're ready to launch airstrikes into Libya whenever necessary. And this is coming from Josh Earnest. He says the United States has already taken military strikes against the Islamic State in Libya. We know this is not what they're going after. They're really going after the people that oppose the puppet government. And when necessary, they will protect the American people there. And we won't hesitate to use force in this area. Translation, if the people start fighting against the unity government, we will fly in there and strike them down. Now, to push this a step forward, the United States right now is using the propaganda that Boko Haram is going to be joining the fight in Libya and joining up with the Islamic State, because they see the unity government is not in full power right now, and they need to push this as hard as they possibly can. Now, Bulgaria is bringing charges against Turkey for their illegal oil trade with the Islamic State. They're doing a full investigation right now. And they determined that, yes, Turkey has been smuggling Syrian oil into Bulgaria and to other places. And Turkey is responsible for all this, and they're starting this entire investigation on this entire situation. Now, Kerry is due in Vienna, which will host the international contact group engaged in efforts to halt the fighting in Syria and Libya. And he's going to be meeting with Saudi Arabia. And it's not to halt the fighting. It's to push the fighting forward. It's to take control of the entire situation. Now, we talked about how Saudi Arabia and the U.S. coalition forces, they are having drills right now in Turkey, which is right at the northern part of Syria. And then we come to find out, the reports are coming out that Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the U.S., Turkey, have agreed to form a coalition to launch a large-scale military operation in northern Syria. Now, the entire campaign is going to be backed by American and Turkish airstrikes, as well as Turkish artillery attacks. Now remember, the U.S. gave Turkey missile systems, which is now on their border of Syria. So, a meeting was held in Turkey last Monday, and we see that representatives from the CIA, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, as well as commanders of militant groups in Syria, they were all coordinating this operation. Now, they're going to call themselves the Northern Army, and the whole thing's going to be financed by Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Now, how are they going to kick this off? Well, we're getting reports now that the Turkish police, they are warning that there's going to be an Islamic State attack on May 19th. They actually have a date, across the entire country. All 81 of the country's provinces, they need to prepare for a wave of terrorist attacks nationwide on May 19th. Now, this is something we need to watch out for. They're saying that 10 Islamic State operatives are already in the country, and they're getting ready for this major event. Now, if this does occur on May 19th, this was pre-planned to bring the Northern Army into Syria. They need to make it horrific. And we're going to have to watch this very, very closely, because it looks like they are definitely planning on something huge here. Now, Al-Qaeda's online magazine calls on all jihadists to undermine the American economy by targeting business leaders, entrepreneurs, and corporations. That's very interesting. To undermine the economy. You see where we're headed at this point. They're preparing, using the propaganda that Al-Qaeda is going to be coming to the United States. The Islamic State is going to Turkey. We're in May right now, heading into June, and we know there's drills going on in the area of Syria, right over the border. We know the economy is deteriorating fast. We know the market is coming down. We know gold is trying to push up. We know the elections are coming up this fall. We have a perfect storm here, people. Things are going to light up all over the place. We see everything at this point coming to a head. And the U.S., the coalition forces, the central bankers, they've been planning for this for a long time. And we're going to need to watch this. Everyone needs to be prepared and ready. And if you're not prepared and ready, you need to prepare now. Go to Costco, get your food, get your water, get your batteries. Go to lifereliance.com. They'll set you up with water filtration system. They'll set you up with food. Whatever you're doing right now, wherever you're going, you need to make sure that you are prepared for what is coming. You need to make sure that you have your food, your water, your toiletries, your weapon, your gold and silver, some cash on hand. Look what's happening out in Venezuela at this point. Eventually what's going to happen, this is going to come to the US, to Europe, to Canada, to Australia, to the UK. Because when the system implodes, it's going to affect all of the private Western central bank countries. And they are going to push an event to transfer the blame someplace else. And we all need to be prepared for what is coming. We need to track what is coming. And we need to be ready. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.